This is Goals with Soul, the podcast for visionary coaches and entrepreneurs, building your business with inspired action. In alignment with your mission and authentic message, so you can create impact for your soul clients and feel lit up every day. I'm your host, Jo Ingram, married mum of 3 daughters from London and a former ad agency director turned business coach and strategist. In Goals with Soul, we blend revenue generation with energetics, marketing strategies with pranic healing, and ambitious business goals with our soul's desires. If you're looking to build your business with less efforting and more ease, this is the podcast for you. Let's dive in. Welcome to Goals with Soul. I'm Joanna Ingram, and today we're going to talk about intuition because running a soul-led business is part strategy, but really dialing in that intuition is where the ease comes into our world. Because if you're like me, that over-efforting is something that just is dialed in so deeply to the work you used to do, perhaps in corporate. And now as an entrepreneur, you know better. I certainly went through about 3 or 4 months where I walked barefoot in the forest, leaning into the divine feminine, really starting to tune up my intuition and understanding how it could serve me, particularly in business. Although, of course, let's not diminish how amazing it is to have your intuition through all aspects of your life. But here on Goals with Soul, we transect that position between business and life through intuition and the doing of our business. And today we're going to be diving in to this conversation really deeply. Allyson Scammell, my guest today, is a master intuitive coach, psychic medium, and energy healer. It's her mission to guide soul-guided leaders, influencers, and entrepreneurs to upgrade their energy frequency and gain unstoppable momentum in life and business. She's the founder of the Soul Guide Academy and host of Soul Guide Radio podcast. She's helped thousands of leaders and lightworkers to earn more, serve more, and grow spiritually along the way. On today's show, Allyson is going to share with us how to amplify your intuitive gifts, and I cannot wait to share this amazing episode with you. Let's dive in. Allyson, welcome to Goals with Soul.
I am thrilled to be here. Love the name of this podcast.
Because we've got some similarities, right?
Yeah.
I love the name of your podcast too.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, you were a guest on my podcast, amazing episode, Soul Guide Radio, and I'm so thrilled to be here.
I know, because sometimes when you find people that you just have that alignment with, and you know it when you do. I mean, it's funny, obviously we've both got podcasts with sort of similar themes and even a sort of a resonance in the title. You just go, hello, this is someone that's talking my language, somebody that I would love to explore certain topics with. And we had so much fun talking about your podcast. And the best thing is I get to do more conversation. I get to extend it. And even better, I get to pick your brains about your area of expertise and the intuition, spiritual piece, so close to my heart. Tell us a little bit about your positioning and how this has happened for you.
Yeah, so I grew up on a family farm, and I always dreamed of traveling the world and living abroad. I grew up in a really small town, small community. And so that's what I did. I went on and I had a 17-year career in international affairs and humanitarian response. And I traveled all over and lived all over. And I just realized about 5 years into that 17-year career, it just wasn't how I wanted to give back. So then I had to go through so many growing pains and dark nights of the soul and lots of, who am I moments. And then in 2009, I had a near-death experience. And what that experience did is it took me, and I was pretty closed off intuitively at that point in my experience, and it blew me open intuitively, really sort of literally, where my intuitive gifts just went from turned off to like blasting on. And that really set me on a whole new path in life. And from that experience, I kind of found life coaching, then I found career coaching, then business coaching, then I finally found spiritual coaching and working primarily with soul guided entrepreneurs. And then I found a place for my intuitive gifts to really have a voice. So that's the nutshell of the story.
Yeah, because we've got that in common too, of course, because I nearly died in childbirth back in 2004, which
That's right.
really changed the big part of the trajectory of where I was going spiritually. Can I ask you what happened? Because like nobody likes to listen to someone say this major thing happened and then kind of not know the flavor behind it. I would love to get a better idea of what that looked like for you.
Absolutely. And I always say I didn't have your normal near-death experience. Not that there is one, but my story is a little bit it's very spiritual, a story. And I tell that if anyone's interested in the whole thing, I have a 3-part series where I tell the whole thing soup to nuts on my podcast. So the Reader's Digest version is, does that expression make sense in the UK? Do you guys have the Reader's Digest?
There was something my grandmother read.
Right, exactly.
Little magazines in a small size, right?
Yes, exactly. So I was in sort of a rock bottom moment, and I got called by this voice inside of me, and I had no idea what it was at the time because I didn't know what an intuition was, to quit my job and travel the world, which was very uncharacteristic of me because I was very type A, career climby kind of person. My job kind of defined me. So without a job, I was just identityless. But I did it because I was so miserable and I was looking for some sort of relief. And I always say I got as far as Madrid I bought an around the world airline ticket and I got as far as Madrid. And I had a collection of consciousness visit me, a group of spirit guides, if you will, from my soul family. And they said, we are here to help you. You have a lot of pain inside of you. And you agreed to this on a soul level, and we are going to help you release this pain. And, we are here with you for the next few weeks. And of course, at the time, I thought I was going nuts, and I thought this can't be happening. I had no spiritual context to put anything in. So, a super long story short, I kind of started to surrender to this voice because it started to show that it knew what it was talking about.
So, when you say voice, like, as somebody that, as I'm hearing this story, I'm not feeling like I don't believe you. I'm feeling like I wish that would happen to me. It's like, oh, I wish I could hear voices so clearly. So I would love to know, what was that? Was that like voices in a dream? Did it sound like someone standing next to you? When people who do have this gift, as you do, talk of it, it's almost like, oh yeah, we would all just know what that's like. So Can you take us into what that really was like?
Yeah. So naturally I have a high, super, super high clairaudient intuitive gift. So that means when I speak to non-physical consciousness, so intuition, crossed over loved ones, angels, ascended masters, whatever you're speaking to in the spiritual world, I hear. That's my my primary language. I also see and sense and know. We tend to have 4 primary intuitive languages. You either see it in a vision, hear it as a message, sense it as a feeling in your body, or you just know. You just have that claircognizant inner knowing, bam, that's the answer or that's the message. I'm super high in clairaudient, so I hear. So I was hearing these messages, and we got to the point. When I say collection of consciousnesses, it was literally that. It was a collection of souls that were, non-physical form. They were in spirit form, if you will, from my soul family that agreed to this divine intervention. I agreed to that on a soul level. When I reached 32 years of age, that's how old I was when this all happened, that they would literally intervene into my life and give me a heavy dose of healing and a heavy dose of basically kind of lead me to crossing over. And that's what happened. They led me to cross over to the other side. So I physically passed away. And then I came back, right? And in that process, it really just like opened up my intuitive gifts in ways that I didn't even know were possible. So when I was communicating with them, you can look at it, like having a telepathic communication. Like they would send me an energy signal that I would receive. And that's how it works. When a spirit guide wants to communicate to you, they send you an energy signal. You receive it from your third eye, typically for most people, but we all receive information differently. But typically you receive it in your third eye, and then your brain translates it. your brain puts it into words because it's wordless, right? It's a energy signal that is without words. So our brain puts it into words that then we digest and we integrate. So that's what was happening. And Joanna, I'm explaining this fairly clearly to you now, but at the time, I literally had no idea what was going on. And I kept waffling between I'm going crazy to I know that this is real. I feel in my heart this is real. I feel like everything they were telling me, like I kind of already knew on a soul level. So it was this waffling from the knowing to the unknowing throughout the whole experience.
Yeah. And having that opportunity to trust your intuition and to get your messages so clearly. And I know from my experience in my life, in my business, and all these aspects, that when we are tuned into our intuition, everything has so much more ease to it. And when we're ignoring our intuition and fighting against it, all of that struggle and over efforting and over proving that type A's, like I identified with earlier, and I've certainly experienced and still do in my life, it's like it's time to just ease into that energetics and the spiritual gifts that are there for us. But so many of us feel blocked. And it was interesting, just before we started recording, I was sharing with you, Allyson, that I've had clients, quite a few recently, talk to me about their fears over not being able to access intuition. And I recently ran a small group with my established clients about leaning into intuition and sharing what I have learned. But it sounds like the level that you're on enables you to get this message through so clearly. And I know there's so much appetite and desire for people to do it. So I've got you right here on Goals with Soul. And I would love for you to share with me and anyone that's listening right now about what we can do to kind of get more attuned and have that ease in our lives.
This is only one of my most favorite questions to answer. It's really, I'm realizing it's really my calling, my life's work to help people amplify their intuition and remove those blocks that are jamming our connection, because it is an energy frequency. It's like you're tuning an old-fashioned transistor radio and you're trying to find that dial, 98.6, where the music plays. And if all you're getting is static, and we've all been there, when you ask your higher self a question and you just get static back, there's a reason why, and there's a good reason why. And I do want to just mention about how connecting into our intuition enables us to lean into that ease. I like to say that 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, when you ask your higher self, what do I need to do? Who do I need to be to attain this desire, this dream? It's almost always you get called to be doing less. Our higher self almost always calls us to take stuff off our plate and put more space and more creativity and more rest and more play into our experience. So that's why doing this work is so, I think, freeing in so many ways. But so let me see. We could talk about how to amplify our gift, but let's start with how we get blocked, because that's the number one thing. If we want to amplify our gift of intuition, which is a literal energetic amplification, because we're talking about energy here. The communication flows, it's how we communicate to the spiritual realm, the non-physical consciousness, to include our intuition, which, we can also call our higher self. That's that piece of us connected to source that is all knowing and knows our whole life path and knows what we're here to do and be and experience and heal from. And the number one thing that will jam our connection is really an energy block. And that energy block will say, this information can't be trusted. Other people have intuitive gifts. I don't. I need proof. I need absolute physical proof, glaringly obvious evidence for me to trust this guidance that I'm perceiving to receive. And these thought systems actually close the door to our intuition. I say that there's a portal door that connects our physical self, so our human self, to our non-physical self, to that piece of us connected to source. And the more amplified our intuitive gifts are, the wider that portal door is, so the information flows are just flowing back and forth with ease. And there's just this amazing trust and surrender to the guidance. But we all have door stops on our portal, right? Our door. We all have them. And those door stops are our blocks. So I'd say the number one thing you can do is just check in. Is there any limiting thoughts or stories I tell myself about my ability to trust or tap into my intuitive gifts? And just see what comes back. This doesn't work for me. I second guess it. I'm not sure. I need proof, right? And just notice these thoughts without judgment. And then what I like to tell people to do next is name the feelings that are triggered when the thoughts feel 100% true. So if your thought is, I don't always trust my gifts. So if you take that thought and you really amped the thought up, it's 100% true. I can't trust my intuitive gifts. How does that feel when that thought feels 100% true? Well, it probably feels defeating, sad, maybe fearful because you don't have divine guidance, right? Or, maybe resentful, maybe anger, like all the emotions that come up for you. And then go ahead and feel those feels for 60 to 90 seconds because you got to feel the heal. And that's the releasing of the block. You're releasing that doorstop, right? So you're inviting the emotions up. You're feeling it gently, easily for 60 to 90 seconds. Deep breaths. Let it go. And I promise you, within the release of that block, you will feel a deeper connection to your intuition because you've just let something go that's keeping your portal door closed or very only open very narrowly.
Yeah, the one I hear a lot, and I've said it myself in the past, which is I don't hear the voice of intuition. I get that a lot. I work with a lot of high achieving, driven female entrepreneurs, often ex-corporate, and we've been in our rational, intellectual minds for so long and had results sometimes from it, from the hard graft, from the pushing and the striving, the getting the promotions. Of course, none of it's brought any joy, which is why we're gathered together in this realm, doing the work that we're now doing and changing lives and changing our own lives in the process. But always what comes up is, I don't hear it.
I love that.
And that I really, really get what you're saying there about how does that feel? And I was literally talking about this with some clients the other day, and it was feels really sad, you get feelings of envy when others are following their path of intuition and seeing the results and manifesting. And in fact, I just recorded another podcast episode that will be going out, I don't know, sometime around this one. But this idea that there are specific manifesting secrets for overthinkers. And what you're talking about now is something that's so important because it isn't as easy as just saying, oh yeah, just get on a high vibration and it's all just easy, because that's the sort of thing that for people who aren't finding it so easy, it's just infuriating. Yeah. So I love how you're breaking it down and showing that there are real tangible steps that
100%. And I get that all the time too, Joanna, from clients. I want to hear it. I want to see it. And almost always in those situations, okay, maybe there's a block that needs to be removed, and probably the person saying it, I invite you, if you ever feel that, to check in. We all have dominant intuitive languages. Most of us fall into one of four categories. We see it, we hear it, we know it, we sense it. Well, because, our mind is always looking for proof to keep us safe so we can, it's the survival instinct of the mind to keep us safe so we can either be surviving or thriving. It's always looking for evidence. Can I trust this? Can I not trust this? Mm-hmm. So the mind will actually be saying, all right, I want to check in with my higher self. I need to see it and I need to hear it. So I have my proof. It's there. I see it. I hear it. It's real. Therefore I can trust it. But many of us have a dominant language of sensing or knowing. And right?
Yes.
And it's just as powerful. It's an absolute myth that the clairvoyants are the top of the intuitive food chain. That is not true. I know the most intuitive people who have a prominent intuitive language as clairsentient, the ability to sense. There's actually two more. There's clairalliance, which is you smell intuition. So that's where the expression "I smell a rat" comes from. And there's also clairgustance, where you taste your intuition. So it's not coming from a physical source. It's not coming from a salami sandwich. Your intuition is speaking to you through your sense of taste, which I actually have. I have that intuitive gift as well. So
I'm thinking, where people say it left a bad taste in my mouth. That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's like, why would something genuinely leave a bad taste in your mouth? Suddenly it's like, I just had a sense, or through my power of taste, or that's the way I process it, there's something wrong in this situation.
So I really invite you, if you're resonating to this conversation, to trust your senses, trust your inner knowing. I often say the claircognizant, which is the language of just that knowing, is often the most powerful. Because I say it's like, if you have a high claircognizant, it's like the divine is putting a thumb drive into your energy and just downloading something. And you just know that's the answer. Now, if you're someone who's like, yeah, I just know, but I need to see it or hear it to know if it's real, you're going to cut that divine guidance off. It's like you're going to erase it in a way. So I just invite you that sensing and knowing and smelling and tasting are just as powerful as seeing and hearing.
I'm getting tingles as you're saying this, because it just couldn't be more correct. So I was just thinking, as you were talking, I was thinking, well, my dominant language is just a sense of knowing, just a sense of knowing. And then when you said what you just said, I felt like I was being that good girl in class going, yes, I've got my hand raised. Yeah, that's me. I've got the claircognizant, super powerful one. But then you went on to say that we often say, well, if I can't see it or hear it, therefore, is it real? Is it powerful? And I hadn't really thought to myself in those terms, but that is exactly what I have thought in the past. But it also gives a whole new slant on the sort of the way I've been my whole life growing up. I mean, my parents used to say to me, you're such a know-it-all. And, this idea that, oftentimes my husband's like, you always have to be right. And I'm learning, and life is for learning, that sometimes it's better to be happy than right. And sometimes it's better to just shut your mouth and not always be right. But constantly, and I'm not saying I'm always right, just to be clear here. I'm not like I'm always right. But sometimes I just get a sense of knowing. I'm like, I just know the outcome of this. I know how this is going to go. I just know. And I know with utter conviction. And sometimes I have to just keep that to myself in my private life. But also what you said about those powerful downloads, because I only accepted, I'm doing little two finger waves, I only accepted my spiritual gifts within the last year, no longer than that. And I only accepted them because in my work with messaging, I was finding that as I was coaching, I was downloading the articulation of people's messaging. And I couldn't explain it any other way. It was like this powerful download of, whoop, this is the idea, but I didn't hear it and I didn't smell it. I just knew it and it just came out of my mouth, but in such a way that I couldn't repeat it. Sometimes people are taking notes and they're like, sorry, what was that you just said again? I'm like, no chance, but luckily we're recording it because I don't actually have an awareness of what I said. It's just coming through me so fast that I can't really rewind. And as you're saying this, more ideas are dropping. And I hope that if anyone's listening to specifically these languages and thinking it through in the same way, that similar intuitive guidance is dropping in for them as well. Sure. Can I just ask you a quick question? I know you've got so much else to share, but I want to ask you about the smell. How does that work in practice? Like, what is it like to smell intuition? How's it for you?
I have the taste.
Oh, sorry, taste.
Yeah. Well, so you know about human design, right?
I do. I'm a reflector.
That's right. The unicorn. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Your not self theme then is disappointment, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm a projector and my not self is bitterness. And so when I get that, there's two types of bitterness, just like there's two types of all not self themes. There's just like, I can just be bitter that my husband didn't do the laundry when he promised he would. And then there's like, I am out of alignment in my life and I need to make serious changes, bitterness. Like it is human design energy trying to get my attention that something has to change. Okay. I will taste that in my mouth. It will literally taste bitter. And it is my energy kicking in saying something needs to change, my friend, and we're trying to get your attention.
Okay, that makes more sense. So some people might have like that metallic taste on their tongue, like they're just getting a taste in their mouth, and that is for them to then interpret what it is that's out of alignment. What is it that I'm not listening to? That makes a lot more sense for me. Thank you for explaining.
Yes, and I have a spiritual teacher who has the smell, and she said she normally gets it when something's off. And it is that I smell something not good about this situation. And she normally gets it when it's kind of a big deal. Like she needs to take action immediately. Something higher than her is really trying to get her attention. So she knows when that smell kicks in that, okay, now it's time to pay attention. Because it's interesting.
Yeah, really interesting. And where all of this sort of gets up another level is the fact that now we as spiritualpreneurs and heart-centered coaches are actually leaning more and more into intuition and spirituality to help us serve our clients and help us grow our businesses. And I know that that's an area of expertise for you. So I would love to understand, if you're happy to share, why or how the intuitive gifts and the spiritual alignment are actually tools that we can bring into our business to actually increase profitability, increase impact, and all of the goals that we have for our businesses.
Love it. I say that I call it our divine support team, our divine guidance team. We all have guides, spirit guides, whatever you want to call them, whatever feels true to you, with us to guide us on our path. To include our spirit guides, source wants us to be wealthy and abundant and prosperous in our business, because that way we have a greater ability to share our gifts with more and more people. And we really have the ability with, resources to hire help and to spread the word to larger audiences to really impact the world at a greater level. So for so many reasons, our spirit guides want us to be wealthy and earning money. And I think sometimes we get in that spiritual, but if you're a spiritual person, you have to live like a monk, and it's the ego that wants money and all that stuff. That is not true. That's just old stories from the collective talking to us that has a really bad relationship with money. The divine, and actually the energy frequency of money, is a frequency of love and abundance and infinite. It's infinite. So there's always enough. It's never scarce. It never says, well, there's some now, but in 2 months, there won't be any. It is abundant and infinite. And so tapping into that in your business, it opens you up to the fact that, first of all, you have this divine guidance team, and they don't cost you a penny. So all of us, we're running our businesses and we're investing in our businesses and we're hiring coaches, and I'm a coach. So I think it's good that we're hiring coaches because that's how I make my money. And we're always looking for that next coach. But the best coach, mentor, guide program is your own divine support team, divine guidance team. And I can take you through your team. Is that helpful? And then how you can call on your team to specifically help you grow your business. Is that useful?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Yes. Of course we want to hear who the team is. Who's on the team?
So you can call it, I always say, you can call it, you have your staff meeting with your divine guidance team. You meet your board of directors, however you want to call it, but they literally are your team, whatever configuration feels true to you. So there's normally 5 parts to your team. The first, always is the voice of your intuition, the voice of your higher self. That is always the CEO and the guiding voice of your team, because there's no higher voice in terms of your guidance. Okay. Number 2 is source. So that's what I call, that source energy, the universe, God consciousness, whatever words feel good to you, of that all-knowing, all-loving energy that is our infinite source of energy, knowledge, and wisdom. And it is that thing that connects us all. Number 3 are actually spirit guides. So we all have different types of spirit guides. We all have a different configuration of guides. So that includes, I mean, obviously this includes so many different things, but very often it's angels, archangels, you know, depending on what you're into. I mean, this literally, I could go on and on about what different types of spirit guides are out there. Typically, people call in on ascended masters, right? So Jesus, Buddha, Ra, Anna are, you know, some of the more common ascended masters, angels, archangels, orbs of light, you know, earth elements. The list goes on and on and on. And you can actually call on a guide. Like if you are working on something creative in your business or you're working on a marketing plan, you can call on guides to help you with your marketing plan. Our spirit guides all have areas of expertise. And you don't have to know, well, I know the Archangel Gabriel is an expert on relationships. You don't have to know that. All you have to do is invite it in and the right guide will find you. And if you're on the newer side to this and you don't really know what's there and you're just sort of playing around with it, to be honest, I would just invite it in and you don't need to be like, okay, so you're an archangel. What's your name? Like getting names, you know, you have to understand that the physical world communicates differently than the non-physical world. So sometimes names don't really come through and you don't need to know. All you need to know is feel in your heart. Does it feel like good energy? Are you calling in good energy? And that's all you really need to know.
Okay. So we've got intuition, source energy, spirit guides.
Number 4 is crossed over loved ones. So, you know, I have a crossed over grandfather who comes and he was actually a self-made man, came from very humble means and earned a bunch of money as a self-made person with no university education. And so he is with me and he is one of my guides and he has helped me more than once on my experience with various things and various parts of my healing. He comes in as a guide. So you have, you know, crossed over loved ones who they will not really transition on. They will sort of stay with you as a guide. Of course, all crossed over loved ones are always with you on a certain level, but some of them actually stay with you to be like a guide. And they stay with you because you agreed to this. You agreed on a soul level that they would give you the support on your path. So there's usually a couple crossed over loved ones that are there.
And the 5th one.
And the 5th one is your guardian angels. And so guardian angels, we all have them and they are with us. So the 3 things that are consistent, always with us, never changing, is that intuition, stroke higher self, source, and guardian angels. They're with you from birth to death. Some people have 2 guardian angels. Some people have 200. More isn't better. It's just, it depends on your life, the agreements that you have for this lifetime. But these are the guardian angels who are always with you. And they typically come from your soul family, but not necessarily. I only have 2. So I feel like this is a pretty big lifetime for me. And I have 2 guardian angels. They're always with me. So it's a good idea to know who your guardian angels are. And you can call them something else. They're called different things, but that's what a lot of people call them. And they are always with you no matter what. Now, the thing that changes a lot is that spirit guide category. And that is always changing. You're always getting different guides coming and going at different parts of your life. And then the other thing I do want to mention that you can call in that category is you can also call in earth elements. I can't remember if I said that, you know, trees, wind, water, rock. I mean, these are all high consciousness energy, as well as animals. There are definitely spirit animals. There is a lot of consciousness in the animal kingdom. There's high consciousness animals, like my dog is super high consciousness. There's a lot of high consciousness in cats and, you know, a lot of animals, you know, obviously whales, dolphins. My spirit animal is a buffalo, and I actually do channel the buffalo kingdom. So if you're new to this and this all sounds a little bit strange, I hear you. I'm with you. I I just really invite you to like be a little bit open to it and just start experimenting around with what could feel and be true for you.
I mean, I know that as I'm hearing you speak, I just feel like so at home with all this stuff, even though I don't know the details like you do. As I'm hearing it, it's like, yeah, this is right. It feels like being a little girl again in a fairy garden. It's just, yeah, comforting, and the sunlight's dappled, and just like everything just feels warm and right about it, which I love. But I'd also like to ask you, because you've said a few times, call in, ask them for something. And this is where I think a lot of people who have less experience get blocked. It's like, well, how exactly do I get help? And I love how you have got that little analogy with like the boardroom, but it's not like sending an email, right? So we have to find a way of doing it through our consciousness, which, you know, it takes a bit of practice, I feel, for people that are less used to it. And it also takes an element of trust that in doing the process, which I hope you'll share with us, that it will actually happen, and it isn't just, you know, fairy wishes on the wind kind of thing.
Right. I am a results person. So yes, I'm obviously a very spiritual person, and I'm all about results in my life and helping you get to results. So our intuition is like any muscle at all. The more you flex it, the more you go to the gym, the more powerful it gets. So this really is, I always tell people, if you want to amplify your intuitive gifts, go to the gym of your intuition. And going to the gym is as easy as just a daily practice, 2 to 3 minutes. If you already have some sort of inner reflection time, journaling time incorporated in there. And I have a 5-step process for connecting in. Very simple. And I'll take you through that right now. And then I'll tell you the questions you can ask to get the guidance that you need to actually grow a prosperous business and bring those results into form, into your manifest reality, into your experience. So the 5 steps are, you always start with deep breathing. The reason why is you want to quiet that left side of your brain, that analytical thinking that's going to tell you, oh, but you have so much work to do. You shouldn't be wasting time here, or whatever, all the things it'll tell us, right? So we want to quiet that thinking mind. Usually just takes 3 deep breaths. You don't have to go into a full-fledged meditation. 3 deep belly breaths. Step 1. Step 2 is you sink into the body. You connect to your intuition by being in your body. Our intuition comes from the neck down. We have to be in our body to receive intuitive messages. Even if we're getting a message into our third eye, which is in our head, we can't receive the message unless we're sunk into the body, connected into our body. So you want to sink down, and I call it the pivot down, and you place your awareness, ideally, now different people have different physical intuitive touch points, but if you're new to this, start with the heart space. That is typically the most intuitive space in our energy body, the heart chakra. So just place your awareness on that area at the center of your chest. Just sink into it. And you're connecting into your gift of intuition. And then step 3 is set the intention to connect in. Now you can say, I want to connect into higher self, source, just the divine support team. You can connect to whatever energy you wish to connect to. If you want to connect to the higher self of a loved one, you can do that. If you're worried about a loved one and you want to, like, how can I help this person? You can connect into their higher self to ask them, how can I support you? I mean, you really can connect into anything. So this is where step 3 is you're setting the intention to connect to the energy you wish to connect to. And if you're not sure, just connect into higher self and divine support team. Your energy will guide the way, I promise you. Step 4 is asking questions. Now, if you're on the newer side of this, I really recommend you start with yes, no questions. You can get any level of detail from very well-worded yes, no questions. And you can keep going down the rabbit hole deeper and deeper and deeper with yes, no questions. And when you start to get to aware, usually if a yes response is expanding, you're going out, it feels freeing. And a no response typically is going in, contracting, heavy. So you can start to notice, like, how does it feel? the yes and the no? Or how do you notice? Are you hearing it? Are you seeing it? Are you sensing it? Are you knowing it? You can start to get to know your intuitive language. And then step 5 is receiving the answer. So that's perceiving what you're receiving to come back in response. And then once you get good at the yes, no questions, I would move to multiple choice. Do I want to launch my next program in January, February, or March? And you really should ask these types of questions. And then lastly, when you feel like you're kind of getting a hang of this, you can ask the open-ended questions, right? What should my next product launch be, for example? So in terms of like, what should we be asking our divine guidance team? I say it's a great idea to start with 3 things, and they will guide you to what's the most aligned and best answer for you, your energy, and your unique gifts. And the first is really who am I serving, right? And I call it your soul client avatar. And I'm sure your listeners have done work on ideal client avatars and where they hang out and do they drink diet soda and all those things. But I find connecting to the energy of the soul client avatar to be so much more clarifying and powerful. And you can just connect into him or her. So when you get to step 3 of the process, deep breaths, pivot down, connect to the energy of your soul client avatar. If you're not sure, even better, let the energy guide you. Just let it guide you. Okay. And then you go to questions. Start with, what's your name? My soul client avatar is Aurora, so I connect into Aurora, and then sometimes the name shifts because our soul client avatars are always shifting, right? As we shift. And then, start with getting to know, I always say, ask questions about 3 things. Doesn't mean you need to lead with it in your marketing, but getting to know her pains, getting to know her desires, and getting to know her needs from you. So it's a great way to start. From an energetic perspective, without talking to another human, what are your pains that I am most designed to help you alleviate? What are your desires that I am most designed to help you, I or my products are most designed to help you achieve? And what do you need from me on a soul level? And you can start with, if that feels too advanced for you, start with yes, no. Go with your hunches. Well, I think that my soul client avatar needs help with, boosting her confidence. Her pain point is she doesn't have confidence. So just ask that soul client avatar, is your pain point that you don't have enough confidence and I'm uniquely designed to help you with that? Yes. Go with that yes, no energy and keep building on that. So that's the first thing. Getting guidance energetically using your intuitive gifts on your soul client avatar. Are you with me?
I love that,
Yay!
Allyson. I love that. I want to clarify a point, though, about the receiving, yes. Step 5 that you talked about. So one thing that I've learned to do that I'm wondering is relevant to your process is muscle testing, where there are various ways, but linking the thumb and first finger together in like a figure 8 and then just pulling against it when you say yes and no and seeing if it holds strong or whether it's weak. Is that something that does lend into intuition for your process?
100% yes. And some people, I have a client who only does muscle testing with her intuition. That's just how she does it. So I don't know exactly what she does, but something to do with pinching her fingers. So a different sensation is a yes and another sensation is a no.
Okay, so there are different ways of doing it. So if you're not sensing an expanded yes or a contracted no feeling, you could look to muscle testing or some other way of getting some indication in your body that this is an affirmative or a negative kind of response to the question.
Yes. And another thing you can look for, if you naturally feel yourself moving forward, if you're seated up as if you were like meditating, and not resting your back on the back of your chair. You're seated up, or you have a straight back rather. If you feel yourself naturally going forward when you ask a yes, no question, that is a yes bodily response typically. And if you feel yourself leaning backward, that is a no response. So that's another thing just to test around with when you're in your gym of intuition, getting to know your unique intuitive language. Super important. And then when you get to know your unique intuitive language, you can really build that trust muscle with it. And then that really opens your portal door so the divine information coming back and forth gets clearer and clearer.
Have you got a story you can share with us, Allyson, of either yourself or somebody that you work with who has come up with something through this process that has enabled them to make a decision for their business that was surprising or delightful, or just something that was unexpected that they wouldn't have done if they hadn't gone through the process?
I have 1,000. I'm going to give you one from my life because I think it so well illustrates how this process can work. And when your divine guidance team leads you down a rabbit hole, because that will happen, dear listeners, where you're following the guidance and you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel good. This isn't what I wanted, but you just have to keep going and getting through to the other side of it to see the results. So I have kids. I know you have kids, and I have one of my children is 6. So it's a little bit difficult to travel. Okay. And I got the call from my divine guidance team to go on this retreat in the Colombian jungle. And I used to be a big thrill seeker traveler, and that used to be fun for me. But now I'm a mom and I don't travel that much because I just want to be around my kids. That's where I feel called to be. Well, my divine guidance team said, you're going on this retreat. And I was saying, my rational brain was saying, no, I don't even really want to. It's too much travel. It's too much time away. And it was like this business retreat in the middle of the jungle. And it just seemed dangerous to me. And I'm like, something's going to happen to me in the middle of the jungle. And then my kids will be without a mom. And, and I was in a argument with my divine guidance team. And they were like, you're going, you're going, you're going. And I was like, no, I'm not. But because I'm so surrendered to that voice, and this was a little bit unusual because normally when they tell me to do something, it's something I naturally want to do. But this was an example of like, I didn't feel like following through on their guidance. Like, I just don't feel like going. But I listened because that's what I do. And I said, all right, you win. I'm going. So I booked everything. I took care of childcare, flights, hotels, everything. I had cool clothes. I got my clothes. I had everything, sunscreen, bug repellent. I had it all. And then the day before I was meant to get on the airplane, I got coronavirus and I couldn't travel.
No way.
So I convened my divine guidance team and I was mad. And I was like, what gives? And they said, this was by design, and just give it a second. They didn't give me the answer right away. They're like, just release your anger and just give it a couple days and the answer will appear. I was like, fine. So I was at my parents' house on our family farm, because that's where they were going to watch my daughter when I was gone. And they had the whole week planned out, and they had her in arts and crafts activities. Like, she was taken care of. So all of a sudden I found myself, and I hadn't experienced this like in, I think, a decade or maybe ever, where I had 7 days of space. I had nothing planned, and I wasn't sick. I just had tested positive because my sister had it and I knew I had it, and I didn't want to spread it. I didn't want to go to a retreat and give it to everybody. So I just wasn't going to go. So I had 7 days of space. And what do you do when you have 7 days where you can do anything you want? And
well, I'm racking my brain and I've got no idea, and I can't wait to hear what it is you came up with, right?
I woke up one morning and my divine guidance team tapped me. My dad has this prayer rock. It's in the middle of the prairie, and there's like an energy vortex there. It's incredible. And I like to go there to meditate. So they said, go to the prayer rock. So I did. I schlepped out there. It's in the middle of this pasture. I sat on the prayer rock and I started channeling. I started to get downloads from source. And basically, I was getting downloads for this methodology that I birthed, which is how we connect to our intuitive gifts and our spiritual gifts. I got this whole download of basically this whole soul blueprint. It all just came to me. And then I got home and I mind mapped it. And I had like a huge mind map that just went out and out for pages, like 5 pages across of mind map. And I don't even remember doing it. It's like you were talking about, like, you don't remember what you just said. It just spilled out. I just did it. It just came out of me. And basically in those 7 days, I birthed a methodology that will be a signature methodology of mine to come. It's like part of the work I'm meant to do in the world. And had I not gone through all of that rigmarole, I don't think I would have ever gotten to a place where I gave myself permission to have that much space in my calendar. I think I would have just been like, no, I gotta do this, and I gotta have this, and I have to be with my kids. But this, in this way, I was almost forced to be in a situation where I had 7 days of space so this divine information could come through. And then when it was over, I finally got on Facebook and I was like, all right, I'm going to look at the photos they all posted from this retreat that I missed. I'm ready to look now, because I didn't want to look, right? And I looked at the photos and everybody looked super sweet and nice and like good people. But I was like, I don't see myself there. It just, like, energetically, the whole thing felt off. Like I wasn't meant to go there. So actually my initial resistance was actually correct, right? It wasn't what I was meant to do. But my divine guidance team guided me to that place so I would have the space to get the information that they wanted to give me.
I am so happy I asked you that question. That was just an awesome story, Allyson. And there is so much there that I'm not going to have the time on this episode to unpick, but I'm just going to pick up on a couple of things that really came through very strongly for me. One is that sometimes stuff happens that feels like it's a disappointment that's actually guided and meant to be. And you, who's very attuned, was able to get that information very quickly. But for others of us, we just have to trust that it didn't seem to go the way that I thought it was supposed to go. But if I trust and surrender, it will unfold. And perhaps it wasn't supposed to happen in this particular way, but it is happening for a reason. And I love that. And it's given me a real tingle about thinking about things that happen in our businesses that feel like an initial disappointment. They didn't work out the way we wanted them to work out. And sometimes we really wanted them to, and other times we was in two minds in the way that you describe. And I love how your story just showed that and illustrated that so clearly. And yeah, it was an awesome story. Allyson, thank you so much for sharing. I feel like I could talk to you for another hour easily, but for the sake of everybody's ears right now, we're going to wrap it up, but not before. I would love it if you could share some inspired action that all of us that are inspired by this idea of downloading more intuition and allowing it to guide us in our businesses could do simply and easily to help us on our next step.
Beautiful. And I do want to say one last thing about the story I told, and that is that download I received, I translated it into a 10-week course. Everything was so easy. It was just like coming through me with that ease and flow. And I launched that course and it filled up. It was my easiest launch. And it just filled with soul clients. So I just want people to know.
We did need to hear that. I'm glad you added that, because that's the bit when it comes to business. We're like, oh, that's very nice. You got a download. But then you're actually like, I sold it with ease. This is what intuition does for us. It creates ease in our businesses. So we can make money, we can create impact without the efforting and the frustration that so many of us travel along with. I love that, Allyson.
Yes.
Thank you.
And so my invitation for listeners is to go, if you don't have a practice, I invite you to start one. If you have one, I invite you to fortify it, maybe up level it a little bit, and going to the gym of your intuition on the daily. If you don't have a process for connecting in, I invite you to try mine on for size, that 5-step process: breathing, pivot down, sink into the body, ask questions, perceive what you received, be coming back in response. And then try in these sessions to ask for more specific guidance in the near term. Tomorrow, should I post this thing on social media I was thinking about or not? Or, should I do this or should I turn right or turn left in my business? Try to get a little specific and get in the near term, and then follow through on what you think you're getting back. Even if you're not sure, you go with your best guess, because that's working with intuition. It's going with your best guess when you're not sure. Follow through on the inspired action and then see how it feels. Don't rush to conclusions, because sometimes, things take a while for it all to come together. See how it feels when you feel like you've gotten through the action, and when it feels good, and when you're like, oh, I'm glad I did that, and oh, that thing led to a result. Allow that good feeling to really boost that trust muscle you have with your intuitive gifts.
Oh, thank you, Allyson. And where can people find you online to learn a bit more about your work?
So you can find me at AllysonScammell.com. And if you head there, I have a free energy upgrade meditation that will enable you to upgrade your energy in a way to amp up your intuitive gifts. So directly related to what we were talking about today, I have my labor of love, my podcast, Soul Guide Radio, where you can listen. You can find it all places where you stream podcasting. And lastly, I do have a closed Facebook group where we're a bunch of soul guided entrepreneurs getting together to figure out how to earn more, serve more, and grow spiritually along the way. And you can find us there at the Soul Guide Circle.
Thank you. And all of those links will be in the show notes. So you can jump in there, because Allyson's name is spelt a little unusually. So you'll find the links. Allyson, that was just outstanding. I enjoyed this conversation so much. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
My heartfelt thanks to Allyson for everything that she shared on this episode. I know that you could tell just how into this conversation I have been today, and I hope that you got loads of value out of it too. And if you're at that juncture of your business where you are ready to call in your most aligned clients, but you want to do it with intuition and with ease, right now I'm looking for 3 successful soul-led coaches who are looking to elevate their brand message and business energetics so they can consistently sign aligned clients and fall back in love with their work. If that's you, reach out on Instagram, send me the word aligned, and I will share the details with you. And so, to your Inspired Action Week. Take care. Bye now.